Successful people learn how to make their mind work for them. I'm David Nagel, and this is the Successful Mind Podcast.
Hey everyone, this is BT and welcome to Inside the Episode. Today, David and I are going inside episode 183. You have a right to be rich, so why aren't you? We all have a right to be rich. And we just had a nice conversation off mic, so this should be really fun. I'm looking forward to this one, David. You started the episode off by talking about we all have a right, to be rich.
Yes, we do.
And some of us missed the boat because of three things. You talked about might be because of ignorance, might be a belief that it's not possible for them,
right.
Or they simply don't want it. And there are people out there that simply don't want the wealth or don't want the responsibility that comes with that wealth. And most of us were raised in such a way, and I'll speak for myself here, that rich people, I don't want to say we're the enemy, but rich people were greedy. They were taking more than they should have been taking. How was that idea passed on to you in your childhood, or was it not even passed on to you at all? Did your parents have a problem with the wealthy family in the city or the neighborhood? Did they ever pass any of those things down to you when you look back?
I don't remember hearing anything about greed. I'm not saying that somebody may not have mentioned it here or there. And I'm talking about directly my parents, my grandparents, because those are the ones that I was around the most. Here was the way it was communicated to me. If you wanted to be wealthy, successful, however you want to use the terminology there, you were going to have to work very hard. You were going to have to go to school for a very long period of time, and you needed to know somebody, right? Or you had to be very talented. The indication was that I was going to have to do something that I couldn't do. Well, I mean, they were looking at the fact that I hated school when I was a kid. They didn't see any specific talent in me, like a musician or an artist, or like there was nothing that stood out as any particular talent when I was a child. And they had no conscious awareness around how somebody actually gets rich. So they couldn't give me anything. The other thing that I would hear frequently was that rich people were crooked. And they never came out and said, you have to be crooked. Like if you were going to be rich, you're going to have to be crooked. But there was this indication that they were rich because they were crooked, right? And in some cases, that's true. Like in all these cases, you can find little pieces of truth to it. But when you throw a blanket over the whole thing and you say, this is the way that it is for all of this, that is complete ignorance, meaning that they just don't understand that that's not actually the way that it is.
Yeah, and there's a lot of judgment, that goes along with that. And I remember, my parents wouldn't come out and say that rich people were greedy or that rich people were necessarily the enemy. But I do remember picking up on maybe some sideways innuendos around why this family up there has this really nice house and, he works for the bank. He must be skimming off the top. But they don't see the hard work and the effort that goes into getting to that place. Like, I know we don't all start off at zero. I know that some people have more opportunities than other people. But if you carry that mindset with you throughout your life, that's exactly where you're going to end up.
Yeah.
You got to find a way to ditch that mindset and to be able to realize that there's more for you. And you've seen it in people who have come from nothing to become incredibly wealthy, whether they have a product or a service that they invent or they're very talented in a singing or an acting. People all the time go from nothing to having anything they want, and it starts with a proper mindset.
Right. That's
why I'm glad we're having this conversation on the Successful Mind, because it is something that I believe plays out oftentimes in the people who are listening out there. I did some research while you were going through the episode, and we're living in a world today where there's more millionaires than there's ever been.
Yeah.
And I read a couple of articles that estimate somewhere around 47 million millionaires currently live on this planet. And just in the U.S. alone, something like 675,000 new millionaires came into the fold over the course of the last year. And that's going to continue, I'm sure, to spiral up. In short, it's there for anyone who's willing to work for it. You know, nobody's going to give it to you, I guess, unless you win the lottery, but we've talked about the lottery effect here. Nobody's going to give it to you. If you're willing to work for it, it's there for you. For those listening out there right now that are shaking their heads, and I can feel you shaking your head around, you know, wealth, what shift needs to take place in that person's mind to understand that being rich is a part of your birthright?
I think that right there, what you said, that people don't understand that. So here's where we have to be careful. It's a part of our birthright in the sense that it's here in abundance like anything else. It does not mean that we're entitled to be given it. We have to work for it. We have to develop into what that is. You know, everything that has been fashioned by human beings has come through a process of awareness over long periods of time. And money is like any other resource. It's here in an abundance. So, you know, I think that we have to, there's a lot of things. It's a very complex question.
Oh,
like
absolutely.
I could spend days talking about this, which
Right.
you've seen me do. There's certain things like, number one, we have to let people know that the opportunities are here for them and that they need to develop themselves into a person who can see and use the opportunity. Then we have to get rid of the conflicts in our mind about what it's like to be rich. And here's the hard fucked up truth about this. In general, and I'm not saying this is for every person on the planet, but it's for most of them, when you're not raised in that environment and you start to become wealthy, the people that turn on you first are the ones that are closest to you.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I've seen it thousands of times. I've been studying now for 27 years, and I've been in business for 20. And I have watched this over and over and over and over again, probably with just about, I'm not going to say every client, but damn close. Damn close. Every client has had problems with their family as they went from not having much into real wealth in their life, like becoming millionaires, multimillionaires. Every time I work with somebody to help them get there, one of the things that we deal with is the pushback they get from people in their family. It starts in their closest inner circle and it begins to spread out. So you're talking, spouse, lover, life companion, whatever you want to call it, to friends, to extended family, in-laws, that type of thing, brothers, sisters, cousins, and it morphs out. And unless they have somebody in that family who is an entrepreneur, who understands it, who gets it, who's emotionally mature, financially mature, they get pushback on it. They get pushback. People are angry, they're jealous, they're envious, they have conflicts in their mind about what you are now that you're rich. They have some very twisted idea that because you're rich, you should be giving them something. And it'd be one thing if they would come to you and say, fuck, dude, I'm really impressed by what you did. Would you show me? Could you teach me? Is there a book? Is there a class I could take? Like, I don't know how you did that, but I want in. What do I need to do to get into to live in that way? Great. Do what I did, and I'll show you how to do it, right? Oh, you did what? You had to pay what? It cost you what? I remember, so I'll tell you a story. I don't know if I've ever told this story before.
Yes.
Close family member. I'm not going to name names. Probably 12 years ago or so. Struggling, and was looking at me, and I had the ability to offer some help in the idea of I had a friend who could teach this person something, a skill set that was and still is a very valuable skill set out in the marketplace. No reason why you can't become a millionaire with this skill set. Bottom end, earning several $100,000 a year, which would be a huge step up from where this person was. I was even willing to pay for them to go be trained by this person. And they wouldn't do it because they weren't guaranteed a job when they came out. And I said, this isn't about getting a job. It's about you getting clients. But when you do this, you can have clients for life all over the world. And you can earn, there's no end to how much money you can earn. They turned it down.
Wow.
They turned it down. It wasn't going to cost them a dime. I was going to foot the whole thing.
So what stops a person in that moment?
Well, think about what they said. There's no job,
guarantee.
no
There's
security.
No security.
There's no guarantee that I'm going to do all this, come out, and then have a job or have security. Couldn't get past it in their head.
Yeah. I don't come from an entrepreneurial family either. Did you come from
my dad?
Your dad.
My dad.
Yeah,
my dad had several businesses, but my mom and dad got divorced when I was relatively young, so I wasn't around him that much. He lived in Arizona and I lived in Chicago, so I knew that he had these businesses. On the chance that I would get to go, I mean, I was starting to be a teenager at the point, kind of doing my own thing, so I wasn't going out there to see him that much. So I wasn't really around what he was doing. I never got to learn all that much from his own entrepreneurial efforts in life. And he had some wins and he had some losses, but I didn't learn that much from it, you know? So I think probably what was even worse than that was that I think my dad understood to be successful, you had to work hard, and that you had to be willing to take risks. And my dad was I got my work ethic from my father. And I've never been risk averse. I mean, that seems to be in my DNA somehow. Like taking risks really doesn't bother me. But on the other hand, the message that I got about my father and his entrepreneurial attitude in life was that it was extremely irresponsible, and that he was a pipe dreamer. So I never saw my father that way. I saw my dad as somebody who wanted to make something of himself and was using the time that he had here to go out and actually do something and at least try, which most people never do. But the message that I got from my mother and my grandmother was very negative around the whole idea. But I never bought into it.
Yeah.
I never. But I mean, this is my dad. They're saying this about my father, right? They didn't even have enough common sense to keep it behind closed doors, right? They were just trying to poison, anger, vindictiveness.
Sure.
They just try to poison your mind.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up the family aspect because you're 100% accurate. The first people that'll turn on you is your family.
First people.
And instead of being there to lift you up and pick you up and come to you and say, wow, that's amazing. How did you do that? It's more of, oh, you're lucky. I still hear this to this day. And we've been in this industry for, the better part of a decade or more. And we still hear this to this day. And it's interesting because I remember having conversations with some of my cousins at a family reunion, and they're young, they're impressionable. They were, late high school, heading into college, some of them in college and getting ready to get out. And we were having a conversation around the work that we'd done with you, but we were doing it in almost a hush-hush quiet manner because we didn't want to open them up to what Steph and I had experienced for so many years after we left the teaching profession. Because my family is not entrepreneurial, like I stated. They're more workforce people.
Right.
You get a job, you work your 35 years, you retire and go from there. That I do not besmirch those people. That's great, good for you, but it wasn't necessarily for us. But it's really cool to see that those conversations we had where we were, sowing the seed to a better life, they're starting to become more entrepreneurial, and some of them had a job in the corporate world and realized, that's not my true desire. My true desire is this. And it was great to see a couple of them at one of your most recent events and to see that they're actually doing that. But they're still getting pushback from the family around them. Like, how could you give up this job to go and do this thing? How could you chase this dream when you can easily go get this job and have security?
Yeah. And
it's so crazy to me how, no one ever came up to us and said, good for you in a genuine way. It was more like a good for you, you fucker. Who do you think you are to be able to do this? You're just lucky. And it still kind of gets me a little bit. I'm more immune to it now, but it still kind of gets me in a way.
Yeah.
It's just so interesting to me.
Well, I mean, the people you care about, right?
Yeah, right. You do care what they think.
Yeah. And you hear about them as people, they're family. And it's unfortunate, but it's true. So
Like lift people up, like lift them up a little bit. Well, they don't need it. They're the enemy now. They got money. It's like lift people up or ask them, how did you go about doing that? That is so amazing that you were able to leave a career that had so much security and take a chance and bet on yourself and look at the fruits of your labor that are being bared because you had the guts to do that. I think we should do more of that sort of conversation than the behind the back, pipe dreamer, that other sort of thing. It's just, it's really fascinating. Back to the episode, you talked about being rich or having wealth does not mean having a lot of money. And I loved this. Being wealthy is based on your ability to manifest the amount of money you need when you need it. And that's it. I don't really have a question around that. I just love that that's what real wealth is.
Well, so like a lot of people look at being rich, and you can generally not rich people, but some rich people fall into this category too. But if you talk to the average person about being rich, what they're really, I don't care what they're talking about. They could be talking about buying yachts and planes and, whatever. But what they're really doing, if you really sit down and have a conversation, you'll find out that the idea that's actually going on in their mind is that they'll be able to buy whatever they want without any consequence, and that they'll never run out of money, and that they'll never have to worry about money. And that is, not only is it emotional immaturity, it's financial immaturity, because that's absolutely not true. Nobody is that wealthy. So the idea is that we're not trying to get rich as a destination, with the exception of, do you have a financial goal for a specific purpose? Then there is a destination that you're trying to hit. But here's the truth about money. I don't care how much you have. I don't care where you put it. It's never safe.
That's true.
That's it. And people are raised under this false idea that there's somewhere or something that they could do with their money that's safe. There isn't. It can disappear anywhere. Not only can it disappear as a matter of fact, like in the physical, but the value of it could change. Like we could crash. The world economy could crash. It damn near happened in 09, 07, 08, 09, whatever it was. And the money could be useless. But something else will be of value. What might be beans? Who knows, sure. Right? But it's a medium of trade in whatever way that it is. But I think that if you understand the concept and the skill set and the awareness behind how do I bring more, like let's say coasters are the currency, how do I bring more coasters into my life? Or how do I bring more dollars into my life? Or how do I bring, more of whatever is of value that I can use as a medium trade in my life? How do I do that? Because it's a skill set and it's an awareness. When you learn how to do that, nobody can take that from you. You're not going to forget how to do it. It'll work for now, forever.
It's like riding a bike.
Yeah, it's like riding a bike, right? It is. So when you learn how to do that, and you can do it basically in any situation, meaning that you create your own economy. You're not subject to what the news says about the economy, what the government says about the economy, what Wall Street says about the economy. Look, I've done this for 20 years, right? So I've basically been through 2 recessions and 9/11 and a bunch of other funky things that have happened over the course of 20 years. And it's never affected me because I never bought into it to begin with. I always figured out how to keep going and earn money regardless of what the world was saying about the situation. And I watched people around me some people around me that were in business go out of business because they fell into the belief about the world is falling, the sky's coming down and that's it. I don't believe it.
Yeah, it's a good way to look at things. Do you remember a moment or that moment where you, quote unquote, had made it and mastered the manifestation of money and what that experience was like for you? I do. Do you? Would you mind sharing that?
Yeah, I do. So I had actually done this a few times without knowing what I had done. And the first time was that historic story about when I was on the dock and I tripled my income. So that's when I was an unconscious competent. I did something that allowed my income to increase. I still wasn't in control of it. I didn't know how I did it, but it happened, right? So if you want to call anything luck, you can call that luck. But it wasn't luck. I had actually did something, but I just needed to figure out what I had done. For 7 years after that happened, my life kept getting better in the way of money, like not huge jumps after that, but it increased. Opportunity, definitely. My status in the company and the opportunity that the company was giving me and the skill sets that I was learning while I was doing that. So that was all getting better, and it was all getting better because of the original attitude change that I made when I was on the dock. So in that time period, I'm deep in study for 7 years. I need to figure this all out, right? And I'm working with people. I'm getting advice. I'm talking to a lot of people. I would basically go anywhere to learn. Some of it was good. Some of it was great. Some of it was bullshit. Got to figure out which ones those things are. Start my own business, doing relatively well, and I really wanted to understand what I was doing, but I also knew that meant you can't just intellectually understand this. I mean, it starts there, but then you have to put it in practice and actually make it happen. So my mentor always talked about turn your annual income into a monthly income, and we can get on a whole story about why that is, because I use it too, and it's genius, the idea behind it and why it works. But anyway, I digress. I wanted to do it, and I was bringing in probably the equivalent of about 50,000 at this point, and so I want to do 50,000 in a month. The first 2 months, I failed miserably at it, and I was working with my mentor, and he was like fine-tuning my mindset at the time. And the problem that I had just about everything else I was doing correctly with exception of this problem. I was making it difficult because it was so ingrained in my psychology about working hard, but I didn't realize by working hard, I was making it hard. I didn't get that. And it took me a while to get that. It took me 2 months, actually, of really focusing on the fact that everything that I was doing to try to make that 50,000 shift from a year to a month, I was doing it in a way that was too difficult for it ever to happen. When I realized that, I went over 50,000 in 2 weeks. Wow. So it happened the month that third month, but it happened in 2 weeks. And when that happened, I got it. It was like, I get it. I got it. I'm done. This is it. And then I went over $1 million, and it wasn't hard at all. And it's never gone backwards since then. And I've done it in every circumstance you can think of, in every economic climate that you can think of, with employees, without employees, by myself, with people. Like, I've done it with other people. I've done it in collaborations with people. It is not hard once you understand how to do it. The hardest thing is, it is shocking the amount of beliefs that you have to let go of to get to that place. It's actually, you're letting go of more than you're learning, right? The learning of it is relatively easy, but letting go of everything that you hold so dear to your heart to be true about life and what keeps you safe, when you can completely let that stuff go and then step out into the place that your subconscious mind thinks is the scariest fucking place in the world to be, the uncertainty of life and your financial well-being, that's the place where you'll learn how to do that.
Wow. When you had that breakthrough where you basically made your annual in 1 month, did you go and do any sort of like big purchase? Was there anything that kept you driving forward? Did you like go buy a car or add something? Was there any sort of material stuff? You're not much of a material guy. You've got great material, don't get me wrong, but you're just as comfortable having regular things as opposed to having, these other things. That being said, you drive amazing cars, you live in an amazing house, you have an amazing life. Was there anything back then where you were like, I made it, I'm going to go buy this, or I'm going to go take this trip? Was there any, do you remember? No? Just all back into the business.
No, it was all back into the business, and yeah.
But what an amazing skill set to have that you unlock. Like, if every single person could unlock what you just unlocked there, having shared that story, their life would be completely different.
Yeah.
And the reason I know that is because we did it. Like, Steph did that when she was working with you. I remember for me, I had that moment where we had made it, so to speak, was in a family vacation we took to Gatlinburg, Tennessee. We'd been going there for years and years and years, but we would only do one little thing here, and that's only if we had like a coupon book that we picked up in the local the store. When we went down there one year, we went balls to the wall. We were friggin' ziplining, we were whitewater rafting, we were eating out sometimes 3 times a day. Like, we were doing it, and I was like, we did everything, and things that we had not been able to do or afford in the past were now open to us.
Yeah.
And the kids recognize that. Even though they were little, they were recognizing that, whoa, we get to go do these things that we normally didn't. That was my aha moment that said, we're on to something here, that we're going to get to experience so much more because of the fact that we're putting in the work and we're doing these things that normally weren't possible. When we were teachers, we were living month to month. We didn't have a lot of extra money outside, to be able to do these fun things.
Right.
And then when we met you and we started elevating our experiences, that's when everything shifted. And I remember when Steph went from replacing her teacher income, over and over and over again. And not only that, but then when she started making what she used to make in a year and a month, like you just talked about, everything changed. And my kids' lives have never been the same. My life has never been the same.
Right.
So I think it's really important for people to understand that everybody has that ability inside them. It's whether or not you choose to go after it. And that's your prerogative for sure. That's great. I love the story. Thank you for sharing that. You did say in the episode that desire is the possibility seeking expression or function seeking performance. Mm-hmm. And desire is how the universe speaks with and through us to be, do, or have more in the world. Too often we suppress these desires based on past programming and not to want too much, or at least in my case, not to want too much. If a person wanted to break through that limiting belief, where do they start that, there's never too much?
They got to study.
Just study.
Yeah, they got to study. You have to get more information of more. You have to study more of truth to start to, because what happens when you first start doing this, is there's so many contradictions in your mind. Your mind starts kicking up. But what about this? And what about that? And what about this? And what about that? All the different things you've been hearing all your life start coming up into your consciousness, and you don't have answers for them. You're like, I don't know. And then it's like, am I being conned? Am I being scammed? Is this a joke? Is this like, when's the other going to shoe going to fall type thing, drop? Right?
Yeah.
So you have to really study to expand your consciousness around this so that it makes sense, because it becomes very difficult to build a belief to do this if it doesn't make sense. And you're never going to do it until you either leverage somebody else's belief or you build your own.
Yeah, that's great. And you did end this episode by saying that start making decisions based on what you desire rather than what you don't have.
That's
and
right.
I love that. And I think it's the perfect way to close out this episode. And I would love to have those people who are listening to this particular Inside the Episode reach out to us with maybe where their limiting belief might be. I think the first thing to do is own it. Like, yeah, you guys really pissed me off in this episode because you're talking about being wealthy. And I was always taught that it's not okay to be wealthy. Ding, ding, there's your limiting belief. Share that with us. And maybe we could, on a future episode, talk a little bit about, what we can do to help those people, because I know that you're out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I used to be one of them. So send us an email at tsm@davidnagel.com or reach out to us through voice at our www.speakpipe.com/davidnagel. Leave us a voicemail. Let us know how you thought about this, and we'd love to hear about it. So, David, any parting words before we wind this down?
Go get rich.
Go get rich. Thanks so much. Thanks for coming inside. Hey, thanks for joining us. Be sure to subscribe to our channel. Also, be sure to like this video and comment in the thread below.